Vimukthi Jayasundara is an award-winning film director, a screenwriter, and a visual artist. Vimukthi has brought fame to Sri Lanka by winning international awards, and also he is someone, a relatively young film director, yet somebody who does not hesitate to touch controversial subject. He's a wonderful filmmaker, and he, I think, has a big future as a Sri Lankan filmmaker who has gone beyond Sri Lanka. So Vimukthi Jayasundara is with us in our program Beyond Boston. Vimukthi, when you were growing up, there were two civil wars in Sri Lanka, one in north and east, and then the other one in south and another part of the country, and of course these bomb explosions and all other the tragedies were part of the everyday lives of people at that time. So somebody who grew up in that kind of environment, that experience, was there any influence in you as a filmmaker?
Yeah, I think during 89 period, actually I was living in Gaul because I was living with my father's family from Gaul, and my mother family is from Ratnapura. So I have experienced as a young boy, even without much of understanding, all kind of violences and the fear that my parents went through and all. So we had moved different houses to houses. So I have a kind of experience in a very abstract notation about what happened in the South. And later on, when I bit grew up and doing my education in Gaul, and of course I have heard and I've even have been experienced a violence which is connected to the civil war in north and east. So I could say that I'm both side. I have been both side from the north and east and the south. The both civil wars I had been affected very much in my personal life. I have lots of memories with that, and so I cannot say my life without war in Sri Lanka. So the both civil wars had very deep impact in my personal life as well as my artistic life. So whatever I think about my life in Sri Lanka, it's always coming back to me. It's always recalling my memories, emotions that are belonging to the two wars that happened in Sri Lanka.
Now, Vimukthi, Land of Silence is a film, it's a documentary film you have done, I think after you have finished studying at the Film Institute in India, in Pune. Could you tell us a little bit about that documentary film and how you decided the subject and how you got that opportunity?
Yeah, so Land of Silence is my first film, and in Sri Lanka we don't have film schools or such as studies. You can do it in Sri Lanka. It's very difficult to find. So I kind of thought myself to be a filmmaker first. But then I had an opportunity to go to India, but I didn't have enough money to do my diploma film by myself because I'm not coming from a rich family or a background, because the filmmaking is a very expensive medium, especially in the back in the days where there's no digital filmmaking. So you need to have 35 millimeter films, and the cameras are very expensive. So I have to go to the government film unit. That is the place that being only have access to filmmaking equipments such as the cameras and film stocks. And in the history, Lester James Peters actually also came from the government film unit, and also so many other filmmakers like D.B. Nihal Singh. So many other filmmakers actually came from the government film, thanks to the government film unit. So I also went there, but the time that I went there as a government film unit was not doing very well. Had lots of issues about the money. The government was not actually keen on developing that section of the government film departments. So, but somehow I've managed to get camera and expired film stock in black and white. So in that way, they asked me to do a kind of propaganda film for the government, which is talking about the soldiers who are disabled or handicapped, wounded from the war and in rehabilitation camps and hospitals. So I decided to take a camera and film stock from the government film unit and go there and shot for about a year all the soldiers who had been rehabilitating in the camps and also in the hospital. So that way it made a film called Land of Silence, the 30 minutes long short film.
Now, then you went to France to do further studies in films, and of course, you, if I'm not mistaken, you got some support from two film giants in Sri Lanka, namely Lester James Peris, Dr. Lester James Peris, and Tissa Besekar. How did that happen? I mean, to somebody as a young filmmaker, not filmmaker, probably you have not done anything at that time except this documentary film.
Yeah, that's quite surprising because I never had any personal relationship to the cinema industry here in Sri Lanka. I never had. My parents were not related to cinema. They're both teachers, school teachers, and so they have no link to the film industry. So as you know, it's very difficult that if you have no connection to the industry, it's very difficult to get into it, even though you have desires to make films. So, but I became very fortunate. The first side, I remember the first day that I met Dr. Pires. He was really happy to see such a young guy coming and asking help from him. So I had this a little VHS cassette with my first film, The Land of Silence. I did it for government film unit and I gave to him to see it. And then I told him that I'm going to apply for these scholarships and I want to get a recommendation from him. And through him, actually, Dr. Pires asked me that I could also go and visit Dr. Tissa Besekar, who was the chairman at the time of the Film Corporation. So I went and saw him, and then I explained him that I have a desire to go to Paris and study for the cinema, and also I give a copy of my film to him. So in a few days later, actually, they had even spoke together about me, and I was so happy that they really liked the film I did, and then decided to help me. And Dr. Pires give a long recommendation letter. Actually, it's a long word recommendation letter to Dr. Abesekar, and as a chairman of the Film Corporation, he decided to grant scholarships to go to France and study. So I was completely excited of the news because I never thought that especially the government would help me in that way. So of course I had support from the French embassy and my school in so many other ways. So I managed to get a scholarship from the government of Sri Lanka and as well as the government of France. So I went there to study cinema for about 3 years actually.
Forsaken Land, Sulanga Enupinisa. I think you have done that film. Probably I think that's your first feature film. You have done that in 2005. Got a little bit controversial. I think you handle a little bit controversial subject. Tell us how you started that film, and a little bit about the film, the subject matter.
As I said, I had a lot of experience in Sri Lanka about these civil wars, and also I did a documentary about soldiers in Sri Lanka. So when I completed my studies in France, I came to Sri Lanka to do a short film called Empty for Love for the school. So while I was filming, I realized that at that time there's in the northern east there was a ceasefire agreement between LTT and the government forces. So there was no real war, but there's a tension, no war, no peace kind of a situation. There is a very uncertain situation. There is no hopes and no, there's no danger also in it. So I thought it's a very unique situation to capture on my camera. because I haven't seen a film that deal with a no war, no peace situation. I've seen a lot of action film done in Hollywood. It's about Vietnam, and all action films about war. That's all about happening, a war happening, right? So this is a unique situation. I thought this can be an interesting subject to bring into the world. And when went to these places and people talks about how uncertain their life is, tomorrow it can be a war or a peace. So it's very difficult for them to manage life, and there's like a longing feeling and waiting for something. So I thought writing something from that, based on that kind of a climate, or the glamour that it has there in that area. So I pick up a few characters and develop a film, and then and on based on that, actually, I did a film called Sri Lankan, and became quite a big controversial here, and also became very successful in my career as a first feature, and it got selected to Cannes Film Festival, won the Golden Camera as the best first feature film in Cannes, and I'd been selected in many other festival, and so many ways it become very controversial and also very successful to be in my personal film career.
Now the Forsaken film, that film, I think was screened in Sri Lanka during the election time, and I think there were some problems from some film halls. There were some protests, if I'm not mistaken, and somehow there was some controversy around this film during that time. Tell us why that happened, and how all this started.
Well, it's very abstract. It's because it was 2005 in May. I won this unique award for Sri Lanka, and I have been welcomed very. It was. I can't believe it, because it was such a welcome that I had in Sri Lanka from every level. From every levels, from the politicians level to the business community, the film industry, whatever you call it. So I had a media around me all the time, and then it suddenly changed for the first after the first screening of the film. Surprisingly, during the election time, it became a hot topic of the election debates, and because section of the society got divided into many factions. So somehow we became anti-war people, but I was not. Definitely, the film is not an anti-war film, and it's about the war, but it's not about for or anti, against the war. It's nothing to do with. There's no opinion. It's a matter of fact and what's going on there, what's happening there. It's not about giving an opinion about the war. Suddenly you are being spotlighted, and you call up to be enemy or of the country, and all kind of very embarrassing statements are given by different individuals, media, with the people with the power, authority. So there's no way that I could deal with. It's impossible to deal with. I could never imagine that one individual, just one person, can bear it, all those things. So, and there's no people to listen to it. But whatever, I mean, Dr. Piris, Dr. Abhay Sekar, who went extra miles and support me. There's so many ways. Not much of other artists actually supported. But some few individual really came forward and supported me throughout the whole debates. And it's pretty clear to me, and they would not even listen to me if I even am talking about, there's no excuse for it, just that accusing. So when somebody accused, even you are not committed any crime, but then you suddenly, the powerful person accusing you, you become kind of victim of that event, right? So I have to leave the country for some time, because I could not bear it anymore, and I had a personal threat in the sense, I cannot say it's like somebody who powerful called me and threatened me or anything. It's not that, but maybe it's as in a joke. Probably somebody can just take a call to you and say something to you. Who knows who calling you, and I have no idea. And I got a phone calls and different things, but never happened anything personal to me in physically, or but it created a kind of a kind of a weird situation around me, that I could not trust anybody around me. It's kind of a what we call a Kafkan situation. I don't know what I'm doing and who I should trust and who I should go out or whatever. Create a kind of bizarre situation. So the only way to escape from that is to leave the country, and so I returned the country after actually more than a year time.
Ahasin Vete, Between Two Worlds. That's your second feature film, and this has won some international awards. I think you got an award in the Venice Film Festival. Can you talk a little bit about that film as well?
It's my personal experience. What happened to me in after first feature film, when it tried to release in Sri Lanka. So it's between two worlds, like you're living in a kind of a limbo. There's no world that belong into, but it's like you're trying to live in a between two worlds. It's about it's a kind of I want to do an experimental in Sri Lanka that I could talks about violence. That's this happens. Like if you look at the history, and I don't know, every 20 years there is a civil war break out in Sri Lanka, and there's a youth uprising come from whether it's north and east, whether it's south or wherever it comes back all the time. So it talks about this roots of violence, and it become why it's always happening in this country. So it's not giving an opinion about anything, but also discussed about the hidden violence that we have, and also it's how much of a youth is going to sacrifice for such a while if such a violence break out onto the country. So it's a very experimental film, and also it's because it made it it's shot in during 2007 and 2008 period. It's almost towards the end of the war in 2009. So I had a feeling as an artist that the war actually going to end. So it also had a kind of, you can see it, I censored, I feel it, there is a end of a war actually. And also wanted to overcome the censorship problem, so it never exposed anything openly discussed. It was quite using always metaphor to discuss things, so that became experimental in one way. So it's in so many ways it's a very important film to me, and it's also a very psychological film because it talks about the fear in the country, fear between if you're not having any opinion, still you can have a fear of being a victim of the system. So it's always all talks about during wars how some people can survive without having being any side of it. So it's a very difficult subject to talk about. I think you need to see this film. Unfortunately, we haven't screened the film in Sri Lanka yet, so I'm trying to release it at least this year. So one of the reasons I'm actually right now in Sri Lanka to organize a screening, and because in Australia it's very difficult to get a release of such a film on it, because people not much of an interest to come and see it when the film discuss about politics and something bitter for you, not pleasing you, not just giving you just simple entertainment.
Thank you, Vimukthi. We'll meet you again with another program of Boston Beyond, a program that wants to make connections and build bridges with Sri Lankans in Boston and beyond. Thank you.